one thing I like best about No More Tears, and the one thing I'd want people to know is that we're human and that we treat people like humans. And so instead of somebody waiting in line or calling in on a waiting list and being this corporate place where it's cold and not welcoming, it's so anti that. It's hard to even describe how anti that it is, that we really just are humans trying to help other humans.
Well, I've had a few charity events that I've been participating in. One was in my house. Actually, a couple have been in my house, and one has been here in this facility. And I've cooked and had a couple of events where 107 people were here, 67 people were at my house, and we raised quite a bit of money.
Well, I got into No More Tears because I'm a high school student and I needed service hours. And from the second that I met Somi, I was just really interested in the organization. I felt that I needed to help and I wanted to help. And ever since then, we became closer and closer, and I've been helping her for about a year now.
I am a volunteer, and I found out about No More Tears, or Somi Ali, through Nova Southeastern University. It was a practicum for community psychology, and that's how I came across. And she was the very first person I met, and it was great at first sight. I didn't go anywhere else after meeting her. That was it.
Well, I'm a high school student in supplementation, and I came to Somi Ali for service hours. I received my service hours by walking in various fashion shows that she's held, as well as moving victims.
I first became involved in No More Tears back in July of 2010 when I first met Somi. At first impressions, I was just blown away. Somi came to me, she looked me dead in the eye, held out her hand, and introduced herself. And as I shook her hand, I saw just how determined she was, just the kind of person she was, very strong. And I learned eventually how dedicated she is, 100% that is, to ending domestic violence. And this is why I believe in No More Tears. This is why I have become 100% dedicated to ending domestic violence myself, because I believe in Somi, and the example she sets gives me hope for the rest of mankind.
My senior year at Nova, I had to do a practicum for my psychology degree, and Somi was listed as one of the organizations that I could work with. So I contacted her and I got an internship, and after I completed my hours, I just loved working here and seeing the difference that they make so much that I've stayed and I continue to volunteer to this day.
Well, my name is Samaya Mobasagi, and I was approached by Somi Ali about almost a year ago to assist her with her domestic violence cases. I'm an immigration attorney, and I help No More Tears filing immigration petitions for the abused women and children of either United States citizen, green card holders, or various other types of reliefs, such as U-Visa, VAWA petitions, and all of their immigration type cases for No More Tears.
Resident optometrist for No More Tears, and I examine the eyes of No More Tears survivors and their children.
Well, I serve as the family therapist or therapist on board. So most of the clients for No More Tears are actually referred to me for psychotherapy.
Domestic violence in the state of Florida is definitely not receiving enough attention. Matter of fact, it's something that I'm passionate about. I'm a family lawyer. I am a candidate for State House, former mayor of Coral Springs. And unfortunately, I've seen too many people that come to my office that are victims of domestic violence. I'm hoping with organizations like No More Tears that can get that much more attention and that much more money and other solutions put towards helping protect these victims and not be victims in the future.
Domestic violence can't be tolerated in any culture or any socioeconomic strata. This organization, like many organizations, has a role in trying to break down those cultural barriers and those belief systems that perpetuate domestic violence and allow it to continue. Uniquely, No More Tears reaches out across cultures to try to educate and break down those systems of belief that allow domestic violence to continue.
first woman that I really felt like I got to make an impact with, I got to do her intake, and then a couple months down the road, it was Thanksgiving, and I told her to have a happy Thanksgiving, and she told me that she didn't have food for her and her son, and it just made me really sad. So I went out and I bought her all these groceries that I thought that might make a Thanksgiving dinner, and I brought them to Somi, who then gave them to her, and she was just so overjoyed and so thankful and tearful. I really knew that day that she needed help and that we could make a difference in a person's life, even if it's just giving them Thanksgiving dinner.
Well, I remember one of the first activities I did was I donated a TV, and when I donated that to the person's house, Somi told me afterwards that the daughter was literally in tears, even though she was watching TV without cable, just could barely make out the scenes, with all the noise. But for that person, it was the first time they had a TV in years.
I would say the first time I came to one of the events, I actually got to meet the mayor, which I've never done, so that was kind of an interesting event. And the second most memorable thing I can think of is we helped one of the victims. We took him out for his birthday. He never had a birthday party or anything like that, so he went to a football game. He's very big into football, and that was a very interesting event.
Lots of them. Funny, sad. The one that really sticks out is one of the first ladies we worked with, and Somi and I met her at Starbucks, and her story was awful, like they all are. And I remember us looking at each other about choking up, and then I walked out of Starbucks and the sun was in my eyes, and I remember her telling us about how she had been locked in her house and she couldn't see the sun, and I remember just like wanting to bawl, wanting to cry so badly and trying to suck it up. And I remember driving to school where I teach and getting to class and it like just all coming out, and I was crying, and my class was like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Oh, I just heard the worst story." And then I remember my students and deciding that they should donate something, and so they all brought out their wallets, and I think maybe together made like $45 or something, because they're college kids, they didn't have much, but they were really moved by it. That's one of my first memories with No More Tears. I have a lot, but I just recall that very vividly at the early phases.
Well, we've had fun parties, which is always great, and got to meet a lot of nice people who really care about the organization, people who care about Somi, and people who are willing to dedicate their time and their skills in making No More Tears a bigger and better organization. Specifically, there are a few cases that I've had that the women have been able to seek relief, been granted relief from immigration, and that's something that's very important to me. Their cases are processed according to USCIS or the law, and we just seeing them have positive results is something very cherishable.
I have many very fond memories of my time spent with No More Tears, but the one that I cherish the most is the first time I helped a family member of No More Tears. This was a woman who had been abused by her husband as well as her two stepsons for over 10 years, and when they had finished using her, they just threw her out of her house, and she had nowhere to go, so she came to No More Tears. And Somi, from there, had helped her find an apartment, as well as collected donations to turn that apartment into a home. And it took about 3 trips to move all of the donations into the woman's apartment. And on the 3rd trip, I had moved the couch that Somi had donated to her. And once I finished setting up all the furniture, the woman came and sat down on the couch, and then she just broke down and started crying. And I went over to her and I held her to comfort her. And that's when she looked up at me and said, "Thank you. Now I think everything will be alright."
I really hope No More Tears becomes bigger and more known throughout the world, because it really is a great organization. It really does help. Like, being with No More Tears has opened my eyes so much to see how great of a life that us in America truly have. Whereas in other places they don't get to have that kind of freedom, to where they are being beaten every day, and it's just it's just opened my eyes.
And if you could tell people one thing about No More Tears, what would it be?
It's awesome.
I think, we have a lot of aid here in the United States. Of course, a lot of abused women or victims of domestic violence go untouched and aren't helped with all the help we have in the United States. I could imagine how much more help is needed for places that don't even have basic places to go.
No More Tears has the opportunity to help educate local law enforcement and to make them more culturally sensitive to the issues that they will face in the homes where domestic violence is reported. There are unique issues that some cultures face that may make it harder on law enforcement to fully enforce the law or to understand the dynamics in the home. No More Tears can play a role in making sure they have the tools necessary to protect the women and the families.
I think with connections with the right people, with people like yourselves that are doing such great work to help especially so many women that are victims of domestic violence, there's so much more that can be done and should be done. No More Tears is a great part of those efforts. I appreciate that.
I think it would be awesome if there were little No More Tears sub-branches or little No More Tears entities all over the place, because unfortunately the need is there for victims to get help, and these other types of agencies that are more corporate are just, they have a purpose, but they're not all there is to it. And so it would be awesome to see No More Tears in lots of cities and even outside of the United States.
Now what we need to do is we need to expand. We need to do more in education. We need to get out to the different cultural centers. We need to get out into our communities and begin to expand on the successes and start helping more families with just the overwhelming needs out there. Now more than ever, No More Tears is necessary.